Hey, beautiful people. Welcome to Soul Podcasting. I'm your host, Demetria, and today we're talking about how to use podcasting as a powerful marketing tool for your online business. You're listening to episode 30. This episode is especially for entrepreneurs out there who are looking to power up your business through the medium of podcasting. This is something that I am passionate about sharing with you because I know how fabulous it feels to create your podcast, to get it out there to the world, and to feel like you are making a tremendous difference in the world somehow, some way. Maybe something you said made a difference in someone's life, and that's what podcasting is all about to me. Now, you may be wanting to align your podcast with your business and use your podcasting as a way to empower what you do in your business. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So first things first, let's talk about why podcasting is such a game changer for marketing your online business. First off, podcasts allow you to connect with your audience on a personal level. You get to share your expertise. It is a privilege to share what you know with your audience. And then you also get to build a community around your brand. So all of these things are what makes podcasting a game changer. And I have loads of episodes that reiterate this very statement I'm making right now. So you can go back and listen to anything else that I've said in my previous episodes that encourage you to move forward with podcasting because of these very things. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of podcasters, specifically women in podcasting, who have used their platforms to grow their businesses. So I can just give you an example of the practicality of what this is for me and how this has really encouraged me over the years to keep doing what I'm doing, whether it's for hobby or for business. I'm in alignment with what I'm talking about on my show. So for me, it's a win-win no matter what. But to know that this also can be something that can elevate my business means a lot to me. So let's take, for example, Marie Forleo. I don't know if you've heard of Marie Forleo, but I've been following her for about 10 years. She's a life coach, she's a motivational speaker, and she's the author of the Marie Forleo podcast. And through her podcast, she provides business and life advice, which has helped her to promote her courses and her books and her live events. So just think about using your podcast as a way to promote what you're doing. In fact, I'm going to share a personal experience in just a moment. But first, I want to continue to just give you some more examples of people out there right now, well-known folks who are using podcasts to their benefit. So there's Chalene Johnson, and she runs The Chalene Show. And if you don't know Chalene Johnson, she's a fitness and lifestyle expert. I know her from Beachbody. She hosts the Chalene Show, where she discusses health, fitness, and personal development. And her podcast has been instrumental in promoting her fitness programs and all of her online courses and her live events. Once again, it's about promotion. So the more people are listening to your podcast, the bigger your show is. Whenever you promote, the more impact you'll have on your business because you have more reach because of your listeners. Now, Amy Porterfield has been one of my favorite marketing experts that I've been following for over 10 years. Actually, I've been following her since 2009 or so. So I've been around the marketing world for a bit, and she was one of the very few women in marketing that I just enjoyed listening to. And that really, I felt, was a great coach for me, an example for me as she started her podcast in these days as well. And so she is a marketing strategist. Amy Porterfield is an online educator, and she hosts the Online Marketing Made Easy podcast. Now, through her podcast, she provides actionable tips on online marketing, which has helped her grow her email list tremendously. And she even has a course about growing your email list, which I purchased a few years ago. She sells her digital courses through her podcast, and she establishes herself as a thought leader in her industry. And it's all a lot to do with her podcast. I won't say it's all because of her podcast, but I know that her podcast is a cornerstone in her business marketing plan. So all these women have successfully leveraged their podcasts to grow their business, all at varying levels of success and monetization, but they've all built their brands and they all connect with their audiences in meaningful ways. And so I'm nowhere near the level of these women, but I will tell you that I have personally experienced the benefit of having my podcast, whether it's small or medium size show, be able to reach enough people where I can once in a while get a client from my show. I know there are women who have had huge results from their marketing efforts on their podcast. I would say I've had some results, and I think some is still a testimony to the fact that the potential is there. So some is better than none. And I think that if you are just starting your podcast, just to know that there's potential for your show to be able to reach a larger audience with time as it grows, which gives you an opportunity to sell your products, sell your services, really pitch what you do to your audience, will make a huge difference in your approach, especially if you know that your podcast can be a monetized one and that you can align it with your business. You're going to feel more confident. The more episodes you create, the more listeners you attract, the easier it will feel for you to start to really showcase what you do. So that said, I'm going to do a little segue here and promote my business and what I do. So in addition to offering value in the area of podcasting and sharing with the world what I do with podcast coaching and podcast auditing, one of the things that I really enjoy doing right now is website design. And this is so much fun for me because I love designing. There's a lot of things that I'm going to use the word love for, and I love doing a lot of things because I'm multi-passionate and I just like to do a lot of stuff. But as far as web design goes, I've been doing this for about 20 years now, since 2004, when I designed my first website for a client. And at this point, my processes and the way I do things have changed a lot over the years, but now I think it's a lot more streamlined than it ever has been. And I just feel a lot more confident in providing websites for entrepreneurs, especially coaches and digital creators, solopreneurs, those who are artists and songwriters and authors, coaches, small business owners. That's kind of my forte. I like working with individuals who are creative and maybe even a bit eclectic and just want to promote their message to the world with a unique website. I want to give you something that you're proud of and that's simple, tasteful, and elegant. And that is something that you can grow with and that your website will grow with time due to the marketing efforts that we'll do and the search engine optimization strategies that I give to every one of my design clients. So I don't just leave you with a beautiful design, but I also make sure that you have a keyword strategy complete so that we can go in and make sure that we're setting you up for success online. So that's what I specialize in when it comes to web design. And I'm super happy to offer that. And from now on, I want to make it a point to plug that on my episodes. So if you want to know more about what I do as far as design goes, you're interested in a design or know someone who might need something redesigned or done right away, you can then contact me at demetriazinga.com. And of course, my links that I mention here on the show are going to be in the show notes as well. I say all this to say that just like all of these women I've mentioned, and just like what I'm doing, you too can use your podcast to tell your story, share your journey, and connect authentically with your listeners. So let's talk a bit about how to integrate your podcast with your business. How are you going to do that? So you could start by aligning your podcast content with your business goals. If you're selling products or services, you need to create episodes that address your audience's pain points and demonstrate how your offerings can help. So how do I do this? Well, from time to time, like I just did a moment ago, I mentioned my podcast auditing or my web design services as a CTA or a call to action. And this is something that you can do starting with your very first episode. Another way to integrate your podcast content with your business is to discuss ideas such as product reviews. You can add those into your podcast. You can add customer testimonials. This always gives your business the credibility that you want it to have. And you're putting this in your podcast, which makes it even more valuable to your listeners. You also can give some kind of behind the scenes looks at your business, the same way you would on an Instagram story, but except you're doing it through an audio form. Just kind of share what's happening behind the scenes as you're working on your services. Now, this last part I haven't done a lot of, although I do a call to action and share that I do offer web design. I haven't taken you guys to the back end of how my day in the life looks, at least on this show, but I think that's a great idea. It's something I do on my YouTube channel because it's so much easier to show what I do than it is to give you an auditory visual. But I think that's a really great idea for another episode. But one tip I want to give you is to always include a call to action in your episodes so your listeners know exactly what to do. Now, if they have to question how to find your services and your products, then you haven't completed the loop. You need to complete the loop. If you start, you need to finish. So if you start talking about your service, you need to finish by letting them know where to go to find out more. Don't just assume they're going to look at the show notes. They might not. So always say the website URL so that they have it in their minds. And then later on, let's say they're driving and they can't get to the show notes right away. At least it'll be in their memory if they want to put it to memory. And you would have said it out loud and they would have heard you say the website address. So it's important to add your call to action in your episodes, directing your listeners to your website, to your online store, or even to your social media. Now let's talk a bit about leveraging your podcast SEO. SEO stands for search engine optimization. It's not just for your websites though. I want you to keep in mind that everything you do virtually, everything you do online has SEO strategy or should have an SEO strategy because it's being looked at by Google and search engines. And these engines are looking for specific things. They're looking for what people are looking for, what readers are looking for, what is being typed into the search bar on a regular basis. And that's the information it's pulling up for those who are looking for info. So if people are looking for information about how to do something and they stumble upon your podcast or your website or your video, then you're doing something right because of the keyword they typed in and then you being on the first or second page of those results. That is making a huge difference in how your content is perceived in the search engine results pages, or what we call SERPs. So you want to have someone sit down and help you if you're not well versed on how to do keyword strategy. Sit down with someone who can help explain it to you and get you ranked, or at least attempt to position you in the right way so that you have more of an opportunity to be ranked for specific keywords. There's a strategy you can use that changes depending on what Google is doing from week to week and month to month. As we know, sometimes Google does have those mood swings. And I got that from Leslie Samuel from Become a Blogger and IamLeslieSamuel.com. He loves to say that phrase on his podcast, but Google does have mood swings. So we can't always depend exactly on what happened 2 years ago in Google. As a marketer, as a keyword strategist, we have to be careful also the advice that we give because what was working last week may not be working this week. But in general and overall, for the most part, keyword strategy has been somewhat of the same process and the same idea over the past decade. I've been studying SEO since 2006 and been really learning a lot about how things work. Back in those days, it was very easy to get ranked for certain keywords and strategies were different and things were just easier then. Of course, a lot has changed, but overall, the overarching theme of becoming a thought leader in your industry, in your niche, is still an important concept today. And so it's important to understand how to play the game that Google has laid out for us. Not that we have to be constantly, measuring everything and on edge about whether or not we're using the right keywords and does keyword strategy even work today the way it did 3 years ago. We don't need to be overly concerned, but we do need to have a strategy and implement it so that at least we're in the right direction when it comes to doing the best we can with what information we have today. And I do understand that artificial intelligence is changing a lot of the approach nowadays, but it's still important, I think, to at least attempt to move in that direction of being an authority and a thought leader in your niche. That I don't believe has ever changed, and I don't believe it will. In fact, I just typed in Google a second ago, is establishing authority still a thing for Google? And I'm turning up some results here, and this is recent as of this year. Yes, author authority still matters, but it's not as simple as just creating a byline. So there's some other things you have to do to optimize your entire website to make sure that you get that authority. You don't need to be an authority to rank, but it's still important to understand how this authority works. So again, know that keyword research is going to be an important part of your strategy for your podcast. So you can optimize things such as your title, your description, your show notes. You can attract more listeners who are searching for topics related to your business. So just like keyword authority works for your website, it also works for your podcast. And we're thinking in terms of how you position your podcast keywords for your title, your description, and your show notes within your podcast host. And there's some other things that you can think about it too, such as the amount of people that are linking back to your show. And if you're also attaching your podcast show to another website that you own, how much authority that website has. So there's a lot of different areas to explore. But let's just talk about keywords for a minute, because these little gems are the secret sauce to making sure that your podcast gets discovered by the right audience. So let's talk about why keywords matter. So 2 reasons you need to be considering your keywords. One is for visibility, because it helps your podcast show up in search results on platforms like Spotify or especially Apple Podcasts. You want to have that visibility. You want those podcast hosts or platforms to know what your show is about because of the keywords you are using in your title and your descriptions. Also, relevance. That's why it matters, to ensure that your episodes reach listeners who are genuinely interested in your content. Your show is relevant to those who are seeking that kind of information. So that's why your keywords matter. Now, how are you going to use your keywords? I can do a whole other show about this, but I'm going to give you just a simple breakdown of how to find the right keywords. And the first thing you're going to do is research. You're going to use tools like Google Keyword Planner or Answer the Public, and you're going to find popular search terms related to your podcast topic. Then your second step is to be specific. You're going to choose keywords that are specific to your episode content. For example, if you're discussing social media marketing, you're going to use phrases like Facebook ad tips or Instagram growth strategies. You're going to find these phrases from the research that you did previously with your Google Keyword Planner, that you have to get really specific about what phrases you want to use for each of your episodes on your podcast. So you're not just using the keyword strategy for the podcast itself and its listing in Apple Podcasts, but also for each content, for each episode that you're creating. And then you're going to sprinkle naturally. That's your last tip for keywords. You're going to incorporate those keywords into your episode title for each episode, the description for that episode, and all your meta tags. But remember, they have to flow naturally. You don't want it to look forced. It shouldn't look like the keywords don't belong where they are. You need to flow them into the content in a natural way. Lastly, we want to promote your podcast. Now that we've done your keyword strategy, now that we've talked about, leveraging your podcast SEO and some of the reasons why aligning your podcast with your business is possible and why you should definitely think about doing that. Now we need to start promoting. So to promote your podcast and promote your business is important because promotion is key to growing your podcast and it's key to growing your business. Use your existing platforms, use your website, use your mailing list, use your social media to spread the word about new episodes. Then you want to be consistent in publishing your content and engaging with your audience. And you can do that through commenting. If they comment, then you reply to the comment. Or if they're in social media and they're talking to you there, then just make sure you're replying to your audience. Having discussions with your audience helps you to promote your show even more. Another tip for you is to collaborate with other podcasters and influencers to reach new audiences and to cross-promote each other's shows. And that's something that I've done. I think I've talked about that on this show where one person I've had on my podcast last year on my Her Business Elevated show had me on her show as well. So we did a cross-promotion. And I enjoyed that. I thought it was a great way to collaborate with each other and to be influencers on behalf of each other. So she promoted me to her people, her group, her list, and I promoted her to mine. And it's just a fantastic way to kind of do crossbreeding. But first, you need to find the right people to team up with, because not everybody is going to be the best solution for you or the best option for you to align yourself with. So find people that are like-minded and that are also influencers that have newer audiences or audiences that are different than yours. It's not the exact same niche or the exact same audience, but that you can help each other out. Maybe you have something in common with them. Maybe you're both in health and fitness, but maybe they're more of the fitness guru and you're more of the holistic health practitioner. So you're going to team up together to help each other's audiences. So the audience who wants the holistic information may also be interested in fitness. The audience who's interested in fitness may also be interested in holistic care. So if they have you on their show and you have them on your show, then you're still going to reach audiences that are palatable for both sides of the fence. And it's still in alignment with what you're doing. So that's what I love about collaborations. And that's one great way to promote your show, is to become a guest. Now, that's something I'm working on personally. I have not gone on any podcast tours. I've not been a guest on any shows in a really long time. And it's something that I said I was going to do before the end of 2024. We shall see if that is something I'll do. I wanted to, I've been meaning to, I just haven't made it a must do on my list. But definitely, if anyone were to reach out to me and ask me to be on their show, I'm more than happy to consider. And I think it's something I'm really looking forward to doing this year. Why does promotion matter? Why does collaborating matter? It matters because collaboration helps you to share your niche with other audiences, and it's mutually beneficial. Okay. So we always want to look for people that we can align with to grow and promote our audiences. And how do you find these people? You gotta spend time listening to other podcasts in your niche. You have to look for hosts who have a similar style and a similar audience. Again, not the same type of audience, but a similar audience and a similar style. That way their audience is already primed to listen to a voice similar to theirs or similar to yours, because you and the other host have a style that is similar. So you also want to do a social media search to find people that you want to align with. I often use Instagram when I'm looking for guests. I often use LinkedIn, and this will help you to find influencers and podcasters who share your interests and your values. And lastly, this is a tip that I thought of, but that I have not done a lot of myself either, but I think it's a great tip. So I'm going to share it with you, that attending networking events can be helpful for finding people that you would love to have on your show, and vice versa. So attend virtual and in-person events, attend webinars and conferences to meet potential collaborators. All this is going to help you promote your show. If you are a hobby podcaster, you're probably not as apt to feel this responsibility to be promoting your show because you're just doing it for fun. But if this is something that aligns with your business and it is part of your money-making strategy, you probably will want to place these things into your strategy for your podcast. As you're creating content and you're publishing and posting, you realize that this is not the end of the journey for you. It's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more that goes into growing your podcast, making it get bigger, growing your audience, and making sure that you continue to grow. And you have to do this by getting out there, talking to people and making connections and promoting. Let's talk for a bit about building community. So podcasting is not just about broadcasting. It's about building a community, engaging with your listeners, responding to their feedback, creating content that addresses their needs and their interests. There's power in creating a loyal and supportive community around your brand. Now, although I've done this a few times in the past, and I have really enjoyed those processes of creating podcasts that were built around the idea of a community because of a book that I wrote in 2017, I enjoyed that process. I have not since then created anything where I built an actual community that has grown substantially. So that's something that I'd like to start doing soon. I have the idea of it with this Christian Women Podcasters Network that I began about 2 years ago. And it began really as a Facebook group, and it's still a very small group. But my idea was to grow that into something even bigger and just really create a sort of community with that, where we meet and we actually talk to each other. We actually pray with each other. We actually talk about some of our struggles and some of our successes in the area area of podcasting. So this is something that because I'm a busy person and I've also been working multiple jobs, I've not really had the time to implement this strategy. And it's not something that I've done, but would like to at some point. In fact, I'm actually planning on a Zoom meeting really soon with the women that have already signed up for this. If you haven't and you are interested, I will definitely leave a link in the show notes to the ChristianWomenPodcastersNetwork.com. And that's where you can find it. I am starting that really soon because I think it's a great way to do Q&A sessions and to just get that support we need. And of course, this is not limited only to women of faith, but it definitely is a faith-based community that I'd like to create just because I want to be free to express that part of myself and what makes podcasting so special for me. And so that's why it's called the Christian Women Podcasters Network. So feel free to sign up. Now, another tip I have for you about building community is just to use social media groups. So I'm on Facebook, so I was using Facebook for that. I don't really like Facebook a lot, but I do like it for groups. So I was using that, but also use your Instagram, use whatever you have that is working for you to build that community. Do some live Q&As, do some listener shout outs to kind of foster that sense of belonging and connection. Every once in a while, I will put something on Instagram. I haven't been as faithful to my Instagram account recently, but it is part of my strategy. I do use Instagram to connect with my people. If you're interested in the kind of stuff that I post, which is about my services and about what I do as a designer or as a podcaster, then I have an Instagram specifically for that. I also have an Instagram for my homeschool community where I post information to share about what I do in that area to support homeschool moms. And then I have another Instagram, which is my personal one. And now a fourth Instagram, which is for a new brand that I'm creating to share about my life being over 40 and managing my health. And so I have a whole new channel about that on Instagram as well. So there's a lot going on, and I love being busy and having my hands on a lot of different things. But my whole point of telling you all this is that these are ways you can build communities, and it's different communities depending on what you want to offer. So to summarize all of this, I just wanted to say that podcasting can be an incredible marketing tool for your online business because it's about sharing your voice. It's about connecting with your audience and growing your community and your brand in a meaningful way. Once again, thank you to all of you who have left a review and a rating in Apple Podcasts. I'm super grateful for every time someone leaves a review, and it just makes me happy that I want to keep offering more. I want to keep doing this because even when there are times that I look at my stats and I say, oh, not as many people listened this month as the month before, or, not as much traction. Sometimes it feels that way as a podcaster. Even on this show, that's what it feels like at times. And I like to be very transparent and very honest about the journey of podcasting, what it can feel like if you're not famous and if you don't have a lot of money or time and energy to pour everything you have into your show in order to grow it quickly or to monetize it really fast. So the reality is that sometimes it does feel like you are offering a lot and not getting a lot in return. And one of the things I want to encourage you to keep doing, even though you're looking at your show as a commodity to your business and you definitely have a marketing plan, sometimes you have to just give yourself the space to wait and the time that you need, that your podcast needs to grow. And again, you need time. Your podcast needs time. Some things don't happen overnight. So I want you to be encouraged that if you don't see immediate results, that you don't feel the need to give up right away because you didn't see the traction you were looking for. Growing a podcast can take time. I've seen my numbers grow slowly over time. And then I've seen numbers that grew very quickly, depending on the niche, depending on what I'm offering to my audience. Sometimes I didn't get many listeners, whereas with the whole different show, it's a huge difference in the amount of downloads that I'm receiving. So I know my homeschool podcast gets a lot more downloads than this show. And you just have to really look at why that is. And it's a lot of factors. One of them could be that it just happens to be that education is a much bigger niche with a lot more traction and just gets those downloads and that feedback and everything that you're looking for much quicker, because teachers and homeschool parents are always looking for content and are hungry for that kind of content. Whereas with my podcasting, it's a whole different niche and it's a whole different audience. And so I don't get the same traction, but I am getting some. So that's what I'm saying, that when you are choosing the kind of podcast you want to do and the way you want to present also makes a difference. If you're presenting by yourself or if you have people that are going to be on the show, that makes a huge difference. So one of the things I'd like to change, and I keep saying that probably with every other podcast episode, is that I would like to have guests on this show eventually. And I'm starting that process now of asking potential guests to come on and join me. I'd like to have podcasters that have been doing this for some time and are interested in sharing their journey, the pros and the cons of podcasting, their ups and downs along the way, and just to share what it's like being a podcaster and the different kind of podcasting styles that we all have out here. I want to put that on the table and show you how different we all are, and yet we're all doing the same thing. This is something that we can pull together and say, hey, podcasters, let's unite over this idea of the lifestyle we've created for ourselves, so that we can see that sharing with our communities behind a microphone is not as isolating and lonely as it feels when we're doing it, because we really are a large tribe. We are a lot. There's a lot of us out here doing this. And so I'd love to connect more with those of you who are also podcasters and would love to come on the show and share your journey. So if that's something you're interested in and you want to be on the Soul Podcasting podcast, I'd love for you to just let me know by clicking on the link in the show notes. It's going to be on my website, demetriazinga.com, and there'll be a way for you to apply to be on the show, because I would love to have you on the show. All right. So thank you so much for listening to today's episode, and I'll be back with more tips and advice and encouragement for you as a podcaster. Until next time, happy podcasting.